Alrighty, Kosovo 2.2, Yugoslavia under Tito, 1945 to 1980. So, a couple things you need to understand is Yugoslavia is run by Tito pretty much the entire time the country is existing. Kind of like the thing that comes to mind when I'm thinking about this is Louis XIV quote, "I am the state," talking about him being the representation of France. That really applies right here to Tito as well. Tito really, for all intents and purposes, is Yugoslavia. So that is kind of the thing that you need to understand. Now, Tito, talking right here, it is based on the internal dynamics of the former states and what's going on around them. So when we're looking at what's happening in the Balkan region, what's happening in Yugoslavia, and why is this happening, you need to understand the dynamics of the countries that make up Yugoslavia. Okay? You need to understand how Serbia is going to relate with Albania, even though they're not a part of Yugoslavia, how the Slovenes and the Croats and the Bosnians and the Herzegovinans, I think that's a phrase, how they're all relating to one another. That is going to be crucially important. Now, Tito is going to be a communist. Tito is going to try to model his country after the Soviet Union. But that is going to fall apart in 1948. Stalin and Tito do not get along at all. Okay, Stalin wants to be the one controlling really all the communist states. There's going to be the revolution in Greece. Tito wants to get involved in Bulgaria, and Stalin's like, "You didn't ask me first," and they kind of have a falling out from there. And this is when Stalin and Tito, as I said, are going to break apart. Stalin's going to have Tito kicked out of Comiform, and then Tito is going to form the Third Way, okay, which is the Yugoslav way. So he's not capitalist. He's not aligned with the United States. He's not communist. Well, he's communist, but he's not aligned with the Soviets. He's going to have his Third Way, and this is going to be really important. It's kind of the foundations of the non-aligned movement really start right here. Now, Yugoslavia during the Cold War, Yugoslavia was the only country which effectively liberated itself from the Nazis. As a result of this, its geographic situation not being directly aligned and bordering the Soviet Union means they can pretty much do what they want. The Soviets did not liberate them like the Soviets did with Poland, for example. So they have some kind of Polish kind of have kind of indebted to the Soviets in a way. Plus, they're not bordering them like Poland also was. So it's a lot harder for the Soviets to exert control over Yugoslavia. As a result of this, the Yugoslavs are really going to be controlling themselves and having their own independence after World War II. Tito is going to have plans of absorbing Albania. He's also going to have plans to support the communists in Greece. Greece is going through a civil war at this time period, and to enter into economic cooperation and a possible federation with Bulgaria. So basically making the entire Balkan region Yugoslavia. Now, this is something that Stalin is like, you're not going to be doing this. He does not want someone to just go individually and with their own independence. He wants to be let in on the thing. Ain't nobody doing anything without asking Stalin first. And Tito did not ask Stalin, and therefore Stalin gets angry. Okay, there's actually plans that Stalin tries to develop to kill Tito because he is just so sick and tired of him. How dare someone act without asking Stalin? And that's going to be kind of the straw that breaks the camel's back among these two. Representatives of what would become the satellite states of the Soviet Union vote to expel Yugoslavia in 1947. And this is really the end of the relationship between the Yugoslavia and the Soviet Union. After the split, Tito and Yugoslavia are going to steer a course between the Eastern Bloc and the Iron Curtain, satellite states, and the West. Okay, they're going to be the Third Way. They're not necessarily aligned with the communists, although they kind of align themselves more with the Soviets, but they're also not aligned with the West. They're kind of right in the middle in that regards. This is going to be offered Tito various enticements. Okay, the West is going to try to get him to move towards their side. However, Tito is smart enough and realizes that this is going to be dangerous for Yugoslavia because then Stalin will most likely intervene. And he's going to kind of just make it right in the middle. He's going to accept a little bit of what the West wants. He's going to accept a little bit of what the Soviets want, but he's not going to fully go with either side. And he's going to be one of the leading leaders. That sounded stupid. One of the leading figures when it comes to establishing the non-aligned movement. So these third countries that aren't a part of either the Western or Eastern Bloc. So we got Yugoslavia. Here's a map right through here. All these different countries. Remember, there's a lot of national tension going on within this region as well. Nationalism, Serbia being the most powerful of these countries, trying to exert a lot of force. Tito is going to kind of try to find a way to balancing that out. Immediately following Second World War, Albania is going to become effectively a Soviet satellite state. Yugoslav satellite state, until 1948, at which point it's going to pretty much become a Soviet satellite state once they break apart. Stalin is reported to have recommended at one point that Yugoslavia invade and take over Albania right here to make it part of their own country. This ultimately will not happen. Albania is going to get Hoxha right here, who's going to come in, and he is going to be like the most brutal of all communist leaders of this time, and that is saying something because there were some brutal communist leaders. This is going to get particularly more authoritarian, and he's going to align his country, Albania, more with the Soviets, particularly after Tito and Stalin are going to split. He is going to improve the healthcare, education, and literacy within Albania. This is kind of like this belief within authoritarians. You do some good things right away so people start to like you. If you remember from the John Oliver thing where we're talking about the Rodrigo Duterte in the Philippines and the death squads, and they're talking about like the infrastructure. Well, look at all the bridges he's building. You can hold a whole death squad. That's a good bridge. It's that same kind of thing right through here. You do some good things, get people on your side, and then you do the more strict things. He is going to be a little bit weird, like compulsory shaving of beards, banning of private car ownership, combined with strict xenophobia, typical authoritarian kind of stuff, except for the shaving of beards. That's just kind of weird. But as a result of this, Albania is going to become quite isolated. And if you look here on this map, you can see that Albania is surrounded by Yugoslavia. They're breaking from them. They're going to be aligned with the Soviets, but the Western Bloc is far away. You've got Italy right over here, which is capitalist. You've got Greece, which is ultimately going to become capitalist. And they're kind of just chilling down there all alone with no one there beside them. And then this is going to ultimately change, okay? Desalinization is going to happen after Khrushchev comes to power in 1953 after the death of Stalin. Khrushchev is going to try to improve the relationship with Yugoslavia. The Albanians are like, we don't trust you. You don't do this. They're going to try to align themselves with the Chinese, the other communist country, strong, powerful communist country in the world. But that's also going to fall apart. Ultimately, though, he is going to make Albania independent, but the price the people are going to pay is very, very high. He's going to die in 1985, leaving behind a legacy of repression, and isolated backwards and intensely suspicious of the outside world country. Tito in Yugoslavia is going to become one of the most open socialist countries on earth, okay? We're going to find out in the 1970s with Nixon that not all forms of communism are the same. When he visits China, Chinese communism is different from the communism that's going on in the Soviet Union. Yugoslav communism is different than the communism going on in China and in the Soviet Union and in Albania. But he is going to have the most open of the communist socialist countries. He's also going to try heavily to counter Serbian dominance because Serbia was kind of the dominant country within the region. Tito is being half Slovene, half Croatian. He's not a Serbian. He doesn't really want Serbia to be the strong, powerful country. He's fearful that Serbia, because it is the most powerful nation within the Yugoslav Federation, that they're going to be trying to exert the dominance. So he's going to try to form a counterbalance to that Soviet or that Serbian power. I'm going to try to balance power between constituent republics as well as ruthlessly suppress any signs of resurgent nationalism. So if there is any bit of nationalism coming up for like Serbian nationalism or Croatian nationalism, you name it, he is going to crush it. Pounding of the fist on the table. Tito's going to break with Stalin, but he's not going to break with the principles of communist rule. Just because he's not aligned with Stalin anymore does not mean that he is not a communist. He is a communist. Tito is also going to rule through the policy of self-management. So basically these individual states, going back to the previous, like the core structure of communism, so the workers, the Soviets, using the term workers, okay, they're going to be kind of controlling themselves. So you're going to be doing it yourself. I'm going to be in charge still, but you kind of control your thing. And he's going to apply this system really throughout the region. He's going to deal with, as I've talked about already, issues of ethnicity and nationalism with an iron fist. You are Yugoslavian. You are not a Serbian. You are not a Croatian. You are not a Slovene. You are a Yugoslav citizen. And I will crush you if you try to go against that. As we've talked about already, he's much more liberal and open compared to the other communist regimes at this time. And that's just going to be kind of his way of straddling between the West and the East. It's said that a weak Serbia means a strong Yugoslavia. Again, this is a tenet that Tito is going to be following when it comes to talking heavily about making sure that the strength of Serbia is not prevalent throughout Yugoslavia, that there's not one country that's going to be controlling all of them, but that they are all equal. Tito is going to be a friend of the people of Kosovo, and he's going to do this primarily because it's a way of offsetting Serbian domination. This is not something the Serbs want. He's basically going to say, hey, we're doing this. I'm going to respect the people of Kosovo. I'm going to give them sovereignty. They're going to be a autonomous state within your country. And we're going to do this just kind of to balance you out, to make sure that you're not going to be too powerful. Obviously, the Albanians living in Kosovo are going to be happy by this. Serbians, not so much, but they can't really do anything about it because Tito will crush them with an iron fist. Tito could control any separatist or ethnic conflicts within his country. He was very good about doing that. But once he dies in 1980, his strong presence is going to go away. Yugoslavia is going to be put into immense strains, and that's going to be very problematic. It was basically the quintessential personal dictatorship, one-man, single-party state. I am the state. That quote by Louis XIV about France, that really applies here to Tito in Yugoslavia. He is the state. Tito represents Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia represents Tito. That is all for now. If you have questions, comments, let me know. Put it down below. We'll talk about them later. Adios. Good luck.